Today we have Shaunace West on, and I'm so excited for this conversation. She is a life coach, a retreat facilitator, and founder of the award-winning 1111 Lab skincare range here in Australia, as well as being a published author. Me and her published a book last month together. That was fabulous, and that is a four-time best-selling book. So, I mean, congrats to us.
Absolutely.
She's also a one for splenic projector for everyone following along the human design journey. And I want to intro that because she's actually really living on this aligned journey of being a projector, and like she knows where she went wrong, and like human design taught her so much. So we're going to talk about that as well and dive into that a bit more. And just thank you so much for being here, Shaughnessy. Welcome.
Yes, thank you so much. I know we had this planned a little while ago and we're finally getting around to it, but like we were speaking just before, I think everything has its exact right time and if you had have interviewed me a month ago, I would have been in a completely different space. So I think it's perfectly timed.
Yeah, the energy now is really potent, and you're really like, yeah, you were sitting in that boss bitch CEO energy, and it's just going to be a much different chat than like a month ago. So
Yeah.
awesome. I would love to hear more about, like, okay, what do I need to know about you to know what has shaped you to become the person sitting here today?
Oh, wow, what a big question. Where do we even start with that? Okay, so I guess the start of that is that I was living my life like anyone else. I was bumbling along, doing exactly what I thought I should do, what I was expected to do. I was doing the 9 to 5, I was climbing the corporate ladder. I was an incredible high achiever that just needed to keep hitting those next achievements to, I don't know, hit the next one. Like there was no sort of stopping. I was an occupational therapist, a pediatric occupational therapist, and at that time, I was determined to be a senior occupational therapist and be the youngest in my company that I was working for. But at the time, it took about 10 years to become a senior. And so I did that in 3 years. So I was a senior within 3 years of completing my degree. Um, but I don't know, each time I achieved something, like that was great. But then there was no pause, there was no moment to sort of sit with that or celebrate that moment. It was just, right, what's on to the next thing? What can I do next? What's bigger and better? And yeah, it got to a point where I was actually diagnosed with breast cancer at age 27. And it basically, how do I describe this? It went against my high achieving self. So people who have breast cancer or cancer patients or anything like that, they are not high achieving people. That's seen as a weakness. And so at that time, I actually didn't tell anyone and I kept it to myself. The only people at work, because I was a very high up there person at work, the only people that knew were the people who were above me, which were like two people. And there was like 50 below me. So no one knew. My friends didn't know. Only my closest family knew. And I journeyed through that first diagnosis as quietly and as quickly as possible without anyone knowing. So within like less than 2 months, I had a double mastectomy and a reconstruction and had returned back to work before I was well before I was ready. I couldn't even open a car door. My body was still trying to recover, but I just needed to get back to that because at that time, that was my whole identity. Um, but then when you have a look at what happened in the year that followed, it was a very, very busy year. It was almost like I was trying to overcompensate for this weakness that I had just experienced. And so in the year that followed, I um, planned and executed a wedding. I went on a honeymoon. I couldn't do any of the things that I was doing before in terms of fitness because I was very, very about being a very strong person. So I was training with the local circus school. I was teaching aerial silks. I was performing aerial silks. I was an acrobat, advanced pole dancer, a kickboxer, a rock climber, like anything that you associate with being strong, that was me. And after a double mastectomy and a reconstruction, I couldn't do any of them. So the only thing I could do was yoga. But with me being, I have to be the best at whatever I do, instead of just using yoga as a way to recover, I had to become the yoga teacher. So, as well as, doing my wedding and honeymoon and recovering from a surgery, I also did a 12-month course to become a yoga teacher. I added in there a second surgery to finalize that reconstruction. Then we throw in COVID on top of that. So then all of a sudden, I was an essential worker that had gone from the 9 to 5 to 7 till 7, all on a laptop, and then still going to schools, homes, daycares, and trying to do everything on top of that. So, safe to say, I got to a point where I had pretty well burnt out, but I wasn't going to accept that. So instead, I did say to my bosses, can I have a couple of mental health days? And they accepted that. They said, yep, you can have 2 mental health days. It wasn't a part of the book, but they could see that I was really suffering. So I had those 2 mental health days. And that was great. I did nothing. I did absolutely nothing. And then I returned to work after those 2 days and nothing changed. It was still exactly the same. And that rat race was just getting to me. I ended up buying a house. I bought a brand new car, cash up front. I got another promotion. So I was managing a really big team. And then I remember driving home one Tuesday afternoon through the city, and it was just park brakes everywhere. There was just locked up. The traffic wasn't moving, and I just threw my hands up in the air and just said, I just wish it would all stop. And I didn't mean like life, like I loved life, but I just meant everything that was a part of it. I was like this snowball running down the hill, getting faster and faster, picking up speed and getting bigger and bigger with no way of slowing down. And 2 weeks, I think, after that moment, I learnt that I had cancer returned. And this time it was in my bones, and this time it was stage 4. And it was the only thing that I can think of that actually would have made me stop, because I'd already had cancer before and I still didn't stop. Like, literally, there was nothing else I can think of in this world that would have made me stop doing everything that I was doing. And so I stopped everything. I gave in my notice. Stopped doing my teaching my yoga, like everything that I was doing, I just stopped until all I had was eating and sleeping. And I thought, with my busy mind, instead of coming out with this sort of life decision about what I was going to do, like I was literally looking at life or death at this point, I would probably put everything I had into whatever I had left, which at this stage was eating and sleeping. And sleeping, I can't really do much about because I'm sleeping, but eating, well, I can learn how to do new recipes. I can, travel all over the city finding these unique ingredients to put into it. I could probably make a recipe book. I could probably turn that into an ebook and then sell it and promote it. And so, with all of these things, I thought, well, I need to take this out too. Like, I can't have this. I need to literally have nothing that I can just grasp at and come into that same cycle of achieve and achieve and achieve it again. So I took that out too. And for 40 days and 40 nights, I did not swallow any food. So I fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. And it was probably the most challenging thing in my life. And I learned a lot, and I broke down, and I eventually came out the other end knowing exactly what I was going to do. And my biggest thing, the bit that scared me the most, was being seen as a cancer patient, because it was linked to weakness. And I was seen as a very strong person. And throughout the whole thing, every single person that did know about it, they told me, Shaughnessy, you are the strongest person I know. If anyone can get through this, you can get through this. So it reinforced again and again and again that I was this strong person. And so I decided not to do exactly what the doctors told me to do. Because if I did, I would be another statistic. And I don't know any stage 4 breast cancer patients that are still alive today. And so to not become a statistic, I had to pave my own way. That didn't mean going completely against what the doctor said. It just meant taking it with a grain of salt and choosing whether or not I was going to do it and creating my own treatment path. And at that time, I had this huge big lump on my sternum. It had grown from inside my bones and cracked my entire, fractured my entire chest bone. And so I was in a lot of pain. I couldn't breathe without it hurting. I couldn't drive, I couldn't sleep. And I had decided that whatever path I chose would work. And within 10 days of that decision, I was no longer in pain and the tumor had started shrinking. And no treatment works that quick. Within 6 weeks, the tumor was no longer visible. And within 6 months, it was no longer found on the scans. So within that next space, like that 6 months that followed from that decision, I allowed myself to just be. And I broke those habits of needing to achieve and needing to be strong. My biggest thing was being this strong, independent, high achieving woman. And I asked myself, why do I need to be all these things? And what if I was the opposite? Not that I was, but what if I was weak and low achieving and dependent? And I instantly knew that it was down to whether or not my parents would love me. Because when I asked myself those things, it was like this sound erupted from within me that said, my parents won't love me. And in that instant, I knew that that wasn't true and then I could change that. And so with that knowledge as an adult, I could change that. And so I just began to settle into what was my new life, which was really sinking into that flow and just being present and being mindful. And one thing led to another. And that's sort of how I have come to be where I am now without going into like a whole nother section. So that in a very, very long answer to how it all began.
Wow. I don't think anyone ever has an answer like that for that question. Wow. Oh my God. The part about you even, studying yoga as like to become a yoga teacher, even when you should slow down, that really got me. Wow. And then the 40-day fast.
Mm.
Mm, that's crazy. But I feel like that was also like a high achieving moment. Like it had to be 40 days and 40 nights. But in like a good way, right? Like you started to lean towards the right, what you needed.
I think you're right. I think you're
Yeah.
right. In hindsight, I can see that I couldn't just do, a couple of days or a week. I had to make the 40 days. And that again was just reinforcing that whole high achieving side of things. So yeah, I actually haven't made that connection until right now. That's going in my book.
Yeah, 100%. And like I think even that moment of your mindset shift of like this tumor, was it tumor on your sternum, like you're like, I've decided this isn't happening. That was like from that high achieving standpoint, but obviously that was that strength that you have. But
Mhm.
wow, like how deep your strength goes that your body was just like, okay, I'm leaving now. Like, let me
Mhm.
just stop growing. But it feels to me like you also signaled to your body that, you were gonna stop doing all the things that was destructing your body.
Yeah,
And yeah.
absolutely. It was very it was like the power of the mind is so powerful. I came across a study one time that said it was studying the effects of a chemotherapy drug and it had a control group and the chemo group. So One group received the new chemo drug, and the other group received saline solution, but thought they were getting the chemo drug. And what they found that instead of um, seeing the results as which drug was like whether or not it was effective, they actually started studying the power of the mind, because 30% of the control group that got saline solution, salty water, lost their hair. Like, can you believe that? And so I read about this right before I made this decision. And I mean, there was so much more to the story than what I told, and one of the reasons why I'm writing a book about it. But when it came to cancer, every single thing, even the words that we use is, it's a fight, it's a battle, it's a war. And when you talk about people who have been through cancer, they either they beat it or they lost their battle. You know, that's always these fighting words. And when you look at the science behind, like at a cellular level, your body cannot heal if it is fighting. It cannot heal when it is in fight or flight mode. Like literally, your entire cell is closed off from healing, because you don't want to use any of that energy to heal when you need to run away from the saber-toothed tiger. So I decided, when I decided that whatever treatment path would work for me was going to be it. One of those treatment paths was to love the tumor and to thank it every day for being here, and to say thank you. I have learned what it is that you're here to teach me, which is to slow down and to be present. And so every day that I thanked, and I named him, his name was Rodney. I named him Rodney. And every day I would thank Rodney for being here. And at the same time, after I sent him gratitude and love, I said, you can go now. And eventually he did go. And I have a very, very vivid memory of that exact moment when he just left my body. But it was still up to me to do the rest of the work.
Mm-hmm. After he left, what work did you feel like you had to do still?
So it was kind of like he left, but he was like, you've got this now. So it wasn't like I had work to do. It was kind of like, you don't need me anymore. You've got this all on your own. And at that point in time, the scans showed that he was almost non-existent anyway. So I knew he was on his way out.
Mm, that's insane. That's amazing. I've
Yeah.
seen a lot of these studies of power of the mind, but like I just know, I feel like even when we met, I was like, there it is, like there it is in front of me, like all of these studies that I have read, this person has lived that. It's
Yeah.
so magical and so like it's so true though. We just get sucked into the societal way of like that's so unnatural. All you
Mm.
need to do is really come back to yourself to like to know the answers, to have the answers, I guess, and to feel it. How did you how did you find like the answers? Like how what kind of things let you find the answers? Was it the research and then also trusting yourself, of course, but like what did that look like for you?
Big question. The original diagnosis was looked like me just researching every single day as my full-time job for the 5 weeks before I went back to work, to make sure that I was making the right decision. And then the second diagnosis, I decided I wasn't going to do any research. I was just going to sit and be and connect back to who I was, because I didn't know who I was, and strip back my identity. My identity was locked in with being this high achieving occupational therapist with long dark hair down to my hips. And as you can see right now, I have short blonde hair. So I have definitely eradicated that. I actually chopped off all my hair and donated it to cancer as my last let go of the identity I was holding on to. And anyway, so how I moved through all of those questions was hiring life coaches. And if I didn't have those people, I don't know if I would have come to the right answers. So I hired a coach that was an expert in fasting. And then I hired another coach that was a counselor, a medium, and a psychotherapist. I hired a coach who was an energy healer, and at the same time, I was working with Reiki and acupuncture. So all of those things combined, and they were all long term, like 3 months plus that I worked with these people. It wasn't just one offs. And there was one beautiful woman named Ray. She was the one that hit those hard asking questions, and questions like, well, what if you were, weak? What if you were a low achiever? What if you were dependent? And she drew out the answers that I wouldn't have known to ask. So across the years, I have engaged in so many life coaches that have taught me more and more and built upon the last one. And in turn, I've also spent more and more money to get higher quality coaches. And so my original coach was like $200 an hour. And I think the last one that I engaged within was 5,000 for 5 weeks. And that didn't even feel like a lot. Like that was worth it. And when I carried that out, I was like, that is worth way more than what I paid. So I definitely think finding mentors, finding these coaches helped me so much. And that's why I've come to become one of those now. Um, I think that was your question. Oh,
Mhm.
so what I haven't included is the third diagnosis, but that looks completely different to the first two. And it's in between all of the business and all of everything else. And it has a lot to do with, so it wasn't like I went from being this busy person that's high achieving, that's doing all that, to being a slow in flow, living in the moment person. That took a lot of time. And then whenever I thought I was getting it, um, I would start to add more and more things back into my life until I got to a point where I started feeling that, nope, this is too much again. I've got to pull back. I've got to pull back. And so over the last few years, it's kind of become a cycle where I feel that flow and then I start adding to it, adding to it, adding to it. And then I go, no, hang on, hang on. I've done it again. I've got to come back again, come back. It's not like I went from, this to this. It's this ever evolving, and the time between those cycles get longer. So it was every sort of few months, I'd add so much to my plate that I needed to pull back again and have like a full week off. And then it would get to maybe 6 months before that happens. And then a full year would pass before that happens. So that happened to me probably about a month plus ago, where I had to really pull back and go, hang on, what is it that I've got too much going on? What can I pull? What is the most important parts in my life? What do I value most, and what can be left? So,
Mhm. I feel like I felt that. I don't know what it is, but from a distance, I don't know if people understand it, but yeah, I can feel like and see it. Even if I'm not like around you, I'm like, I feel like she's doing this again, and then pulling back now, and I don't know. I think we're all connected, right? So, but yeah, I saw that, and then at the book launch, you look like you were back into like, okay, we're getting there. It's almost there.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, definitely. The book launch, I think there was a few people who asked like how you feeling and stuff like that, and I'm like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, you were very like monotone there too. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't really too much. I guess because I've disattached myself to the outcomes now. So it's just, it's always great to soar and to set these goals and manifest things and stuff like that. But if you're attached to the outcome, then you're going to always be disappointed, regardless of if you achieve that outcome or not. Whereas
Mm.
if you just sort of disengage from whatever that could look like and be happy with whatever it becomes, then it changes everything. And I feel, yeah, just really sort of mellow in that flow space compared to like this frantic, like, oh my gosh, I need to pull it all back again. It's too much.
Hmm. Yeah. So can I ask, what was the answer to the, if you were weak and what was the other word? Reliant on others. What was the
Mm.
answer to that?
When I was asked at
Yeah.
first, that was if my parents would love me. So
Oh, okay.
that the answer was that my parents wouldn't love me if I was weak and low
Right.
achieving dependent. But that wasn't the truth. That was
How did
just
you untangle that it wasn't true? Like, have you had to talk to them or anything
Well,
like
no, I just knew that it wasn't true because
that?
that's stupid. As an adult, that's like, of course they would love me no matter what.
Hmm.
They love, my siblings that are not as high achieving. Please cut that out. Yeah, no, it, I learned that it had come from my childhood where was, my parents were very proud of me and they always told me they were proud of me. And they especially told me they were proud of me when I did something that was extra special. And so whenever I achieved something, they would, you know, flourish me. They will lather me in this love and pride. And so as time went on, I sort of mistook pride for love and therefore thought that every time I achieved something, I would receive that love. And so I needed to keep on achieving to get the love from my parents that I thought that I needed. But as an adult, I can rationalize that actually they love me regardless and it doesn't matter if I achieve anything or not. And pride is not love.
Mm, beautifully put. And with like your cancer treatment and the moments where you were like, I'm not going to do all of the things the doctor said, how was your family with that situation? I'm
Mm,
assuming that would be really scary for them.
yes. Yeah, very scary for them. And my heart goes out to them because they feel so helpless about it. But they, the time during my 40-day fast, I had asked them not to contact me. I didn't want anyone to contact me during that time. I just wanted to be in my own little bubble and work it all out myself. And again, that's coming back to that, like I need to be strong and need to work it all out myself. But at that time, I couldn't have anyone else weighing in on my decisions, not parents, not doctors, not family. So it really put them into this scary position where not only did they feel helpless because they had a daughter who was going through cancer, but her daughter wasn't doing anything about it in their eyes. She was just sitting in this limbo, not making any decisions. And so I think that was, yeah, really scary for them. And when I finally called them to tell them what I decided to do, the relief was tangible, but they tried to cover it up and make it very nonchalant, like, oh, yeah, that's cool. Like, but I could feel it was like down the phone line was so like you could cut it. So, yes. However, by the time I was diagnosed a third time, that had all changed. So essentially what had happened, if we go to how I started my businesses and how I created my life with the business, and then I'll move into how that third diagnosis comes into it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so one of the treatments I decided to do was radiation. That was low dose radiation because it's around my heart and my lungs and has a really high chance of damaging some really, really crucial organs, really, really crucial organs. And so I did 10 minutes a day for 5 weeks. So 25 rounds of low dose radiation. And I'd also told myself at that same time that I wasn't going to experience any of the side effects. It was a decision that I made. And because of power of the mind, I believed it was going to be true. And I'd said that if I had any side effects, it would be like maybe a little bit of red sunburn on my chest in the last week or something. And I just like stuck to this. And which is quite funny because I look back on it and I had no side effects whatsoever. But in my last week, my chest went red like it was sunburnt. So the power of the mind is real. But anyway, one of the things that happened while I was going through treatment was I was handed a clipboard by a nurse that asked if I wanted to partake in a makeup workshop where they get a room full of female cancer patients and they apply makeup and make them look good so that they would feel better. However, as I said before, being seen as a cancer patient is my biggest fear. And so the last thing I wanted to do was be in a room full of cancer patients that looked sick and were getting applied makeup to make them look better. So I ticked will not attend or cannot attend. And a week later, a box arrived at my doorstep with all of the products that they were going to use to apply on the day. So They clearly thought I was too sick to attend, which is very ironic in itself.
Mm-hmm.
But, because I was starting to become really conscious and aware of what I was putting in and on my body, I looked into what was in these products. And so I had a box of 12 products made up of mostly skincare and some makeup products. And they were very, very high designer. They were high line. They were very luxury products.
Mm.
And so I started looking at the back, reading the ingredients, and of course I couldn't read anything. Like, I didn't know what it was. There were just a bunch of unpronounceable jumbled words. So I started Googling them, and Google told me that every single one of these products, bar one, had carcinogens in it. And this was a cancer foundation that had given it to me, a cancer patient who was going through cancer treatment for their cancer. They're giving me a box full of cancer, along with neurotoxins and hormone disruptors. And so I made a little mini sort of quest to find a skincare line that was still just as luxurious as what was in these boxes, but didn't have all the nasties in them. And it wasn't like, I never in this moment set out to start my own business. It was purely just to try and find something to fill that void that I was missing in that moment. And I really struggled to find that, to fill the void. I found lots of natural products, don't get me wrong, but there wasn't a natural skincare line that fit all of the boxes. They were either all natural but bland, or had sort of plain packaging, or they were, you know, not effective. They were all natural, but they just didn't have the potent actives that you would see in skincare that will act on fine lines and anti-aging and pigmentation and like all of those things. Like, that's why you buy the skincare. So that's when I kind of started sitting with that thought of, maybe this is what I should be doing. Maybe this is my path. And I was really in this space of just allowing things to happen and allowing things to land. And I'd moved away from my identity being attached to a full-time worker and an occupational therapist and stuff like that. And so I just started exploring what this would look like, and started reaching out to manufacturers and seeing if there were people that saw my vision and aligned with what I was trying to do. And yeah, that was how 1111 Lab came to be. And that 1111 came from the numbers. I don't know if you're aware of numerology and spirituality in terms of numbers, angels' numbers, and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
1111 basically tells you you're on the right path and that you found your purpose. But it also means becoming conscious and aware. So being in that space and just being conscious and aware in what's around you. But in terms of skincare, being conscious and aware of what you're putting in and on your body. And so that's where those numbers came from, 1111, and then lab, short for laboratory. We're like mixing these beautiful angels numbers in these gorgeous amber glasses with rose gold and black vinyl labels. Like, it was just, it's magic. And yeah, so I sort of set off to start this. But my first year of doing this was, I didn't want to be seen. I did not want people to know my story. I didn't want people to connect me to 1111 Lab. And I think that came down to like people seeing me fail potentially. And it was so different to anything else I'd ever done. Like, I didn't know about marketing. I'd never had a business before, like all of those things. So those, my first year was just a little bit of learning. My second year was learning a little bit more and starting to feel my feet and working out where that was going to be. And that that is when I started actually telling my story a little bit, and people started really connecting with the brand when my story was shared.
Yeah. Was that
And
at the launch when you told that the first time?
hmm, I
I feel like that was a big moment.
that was a big moment. That was the first time I had openly spoken about it in public, not through a screen.
Mhm.
But that was also, I had already had a third diagnosis by then, but I hadn't told anyone. So people were still only just catching up to the second diagnosis. And I'd only just entered my third year of the brand where things were starting to pick up. And that's when I got hit again with the third diagnosis. And that's when my whole world just came crumbling down. This was when I got diagnosed with, it was 2 years from that second diagnosis. And this time it had returned back in the same spot in my sternum, in my bones. But it also come in the same spot in my breasts, even though I had no breast tissue. And the final like straw that was just like that, the full uppercut, was that it was in my lungs. And it was the first time that I fully gave up. Like I just thought, what's the point? Like it was so hard to go through it the first time and the second time. And here I was a third time. And yeah, I booked a trip to Bali that week as a celebratory 2 year of no cancer. And here I was being told that I had cancer again. And I remember just accepting numbly whatever the doctor said, just going, I've fought against you before and it didn't work out. Even though it did, it did work out. I saw it work out. But in that moment, um, when I had it return that third time, I just, completely gave up. I was like, well, what's the point of building my business? What's the point of living if, you know, this is going to keep happening to me? And when I do look back in hindsight, although I was sort of really tracking along well, every time my scan would near, I'd put everything on pause just in case that scan told me something I didn't want it to. So I was having 6 monthly scans. And so for 4 months, I was doing amazing. I was living my dream life. I was building my my business that was I was so passionate about it, and I had no pressure to make money at that point because I was in a space where I was financially stable from working full time where I was before. My husband was picking up the slack, and then I was sitting on insurance benefits from the cancer. So it really wasn't in a stress at all. Like it was in a really good space where it could grow organically. And so it would grow for 4 months, and then 2 months before the scan, everything would just stop. I'd stop posting. I'd stop talking about it. I'd stop going out. I'd stop basically living as I sat in fear every single day for those 2 months leading up to the scan. And then the scan would come back clear, and I go, oh, okay, all right, let's go 1111 lab. Let's start promoting it again, and the sales showed that as well. Like there was all these sales in those 4 months, and then 2 months leading up to it, it would just be crickets. And
Mm.
if I did have the odd sale, I'd be like, oh, now I have to pack it, and do they know that it might not be here in a couple of months and that kind of thing. So I think that third diagnosis had a lot to do with fear. I had a lot to do with, where all the powerful thought leaders talk about where thoughts go, energy flows. And if my thoughts was all about fear, and my fear was driving the cancer coming back, then it kind of was self-fulfilling. So I went to Bali,
Mm.
which was actually so beautifully timed because I could just get away and pretend it all didn't exist and that life didn't exist right now and just enjoy my time in Bali. And at that time, I was a strict vegan. So the place we chose was like, had all these beautiful, nourishing vegan bowls and stuff like that. It was absolutely beautiful. But then when I came back, I just was stuck. I didn't know what to do. Um, and yeah, I was just really lost and defeated. And I remember going to my family live in Geraldton, which is 500 k's north of here in Perth, and or just under. And I remember deciding to surprise them. I was going to drive down one day and see them for dinner. And I knew that they just needed to see me, because if they could see me alive and well, then they could release their stress and anxiety. And in turn, that would help me, because we could all see that I was alive and here right now. And so I decided to drive up, and everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. I'd been back from Bali for like 2 days or something, and I overpacked as I did. So I was like, nope, I'm just going to go to Geraldton for 2 days, and I'm going to pack 2 pairs of undies, one pair of leggings, and 2 shirts, like overnight bag, a real life overnight bag. And so I did that, and I broke down halfway through. So 2.5 hours in, I broke down on the side of the road in between towns. And luckily, I was in a little pocket of reception, so I could call RAC and sign up to roadside assistance that day. And anyway, I was supposed to be there in time for dinner, and I didn't get there until 8 o'clock, maybe 8 or 9 o'clock, with a tow truck. And turns out, once I got there, no one was home, because my mum was dropping my dad off at the airport to fly to Perth. Because he just decided he's going to go to Perth and pick up a new car, and he'll drive it back the next day. And so mum wasn't there, and because she was dropping dad off at the airport, and she is very she's funny about driving. She's an anxious driver, so she was driving dad's car, and she could see me trying to call her to say, "Where are you? Like, I can't get into the house, but you don't know your own daughter's here." But she wouldn't answer the phone because it wasn't connecting to dad's car, and she was like anxious about it. So she thought she'd call me when she got home. And so she eventually got home, and she was very shocked, and no one was home for dinner because of all the things that happened. And I got my car fixed a couple of days later. And so I was set to come back to Perth maybe one day later than I was going to. And I called Blake, my husband. "I'm coming back home now." And he said, "Don't. I've got COVID." And COVID was the last thing that I needed. Like, I had a lot going on. I didn't need to go through COVID. So I ended up staying in Geraldton for 9 days in total, with 2 pairs of undies and one pair of leggings. And in that time, because I wasn't planning to stay there for that long. I didn't have my laptop. I didn't have like all the things that I would normally do to sort of utilize my time. And so I just spent my time with my little baby nieces, and then in the evenings with my parents. But they had, unbeknownst to me, their vegan daughter had gone on a carnivore diet. So I had no food in the house. And they like, knowing that I was not knowing I was going to come, they had no food for me. And so then they bought food enough for 2 days. And so I didn't really notice what they were eating. I was just eating my food until it would run out. And then I'd be like, "Well, what else you got in the fridge?" Just helping myself to my parents' fridge. And all there was meat everywhere. And I started noticing what they were eating. And all they would have on their plates is meat. And I'm like, what are you doing? When did you start doing this? And they'd been doing it for like 6 months plus, and solved all of their health issues. And my dad started talking about, well, what if you started looking at changing your diet? And I was like, well, everything that I've researched is all vegan. That's the best, healthiest diet I could possibly be on. I couldn't eat meat anyway. That's vulgar. That's repulsive. And he sort of left it with me, and I just started thinking, well, what if that's the one thing that I haven't changed? I was vegan before I had cancer the first time. What if I changed that? Like, I started researching that, and started saying, well, what if I didn't treat the cancer at all? What if I just blocked its pathways? And one of the major pathways of cancer, almost all cancers feed off glucose, which is sugar, which is found in all plants, and no meat. And so I thought, what if I just blocked glucose? And then it started on this whole journey of, well, what if I used other drugs that are on the market already to block other pathways? Like, if it took the fat pathway, then I could take like a high cholesterol drug, like a drug that they give for diabetes to keep the blood sugars down and stuff like that. And what if I took, hypertension drug and all of these things that are low compared to like chemo and all of these highly toxic drugs, the drugs that the doctors want me on. What if I took all of these low toxic sort of things that people take for chronic illnesses for their whole life without any issues? And so I started creating a cocktail of ways to block pathways instead of treating the cancer or killing the cancer. And by the time I left Geraldton on that ninth day was my first fully meat day. And I thought, you know what have I got to lose? I was in such a defeat anyway. Like I had already given up on life. So what did I have to lose? I had a scan in 3 months' time, and that scan was going to tell me whether or not I was on the right pathway. Either the cancer was going to be everywhere in my body, or maybe I'd stopped it. Maybe I'd like stopped it from growing any further, and that would tell me whether or not I was on the right path. So across the next month or so, I was fully carnivore. I had started implement. I went doctor shopping and found doctors that saw what I was trying to do. Most of them were like, "No, we can't get around this." But I found one doctor in Fremantle. She was a nurse practitioner, and she was like, "Yeah, I understand it. I can hear it. I can see it. Let's give it a go." So she prescribed me everything, and it cost me thousands of dollars because nothing was covered by the PBS. But I started on it, and I had my scan, and this scan was going to tell me whether or not I was on the right track. And that scan showed that the tumors had reduced by 75%, with the one in my lungs having completely disappeared. And so that was the moment that I knew I was on the right path, that I had cracked this code. I was literally curing cancer in my body as we speak without any of the harsh, highly potent, toxic treatments that the doctors wanted me on. And so I, yeah, with that, I started really for the first proper time sinking into that flow of just letting everything play out as it should. And 1111 Lab started tripling in sales. It reached six figures without hardly any effort. And yeah, everything else just started really fitting in. I was starting to facilitate retreats. I was going on retreats and then created my own retreats for my yogis that kept asking it for me. And that just felt so easy. Like there was no hardship in creating these. And then I, yeah, started just really sinking into NLP and hypnotherapy and all of these other parts of things that just really lit me up and filled my cup in such a passionate way. And so I became certified in all of these areas, and then thought, well, what now all I've got left to do is help other people change their life. And if I can do this and freaking cure cancer, then imagine if what I can do with someone that's not even sick. Like,
Mhm.
and so I started working with my very first client, and she was very, very low. She hadn't been able to work because of her mental health. She was suicidal, couldn't get out of bed. And in 8 weeks, she sent me this video of her crying happy tears. She said, saying, "I love my life so much. And I am so proud of myself. And I can't believe that I've done this in such a short time." And she booked 2 international solo trips around the world. And she's just come back now from her second trip. And I just knew that I was 100% living the life that was planned for me and by me. And now I'm in this space of just this beautiful flow that feels so effortless, with a six-figure business, a life coaching business, running my yoga classes and my retreats, and still having so much space for me. In terms of the cancer side of things, I am now 2 years past that date, where that second, third, that where that third diagnosis returned in lungs, breast, and bones, and I am living proof here, 100% cancer free.
It's absolutely incredible. There's no words to say that. Wow. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. Like you've covered everything as well. That's amazing. How does it feel like in comparison to like your very first diagnosis to where you are now? Obviously you're clear now, but I mean from the first to the third, I feel like you didn't even feel the first one at all. Was
Yeah.
there feeling in that one?
I think I didn't allow myself to feel that
Mm-hmm.
one. Um, at that time, I had basically repressed any feelings that were negative for almost 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
And it all stemmed from one superficial memory as an 11-year-old. But I had decided as an 11-year-old that I wasn't going to cry. And so when I was diagnosed that first time at 27, I didn't cry. I didn't cry until I was diagnosed the second time, a whole year and a half later. So for 29 years, my life, unless you count the first 11 years where I cried, as you should, I was very unemotional in the negative side of things. I could feel the tears would be there behind my eyes and in my throat, but I couldn't allow them to come out. And so yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The first one, I think I learned so much through every diagnosis. The first one was kind of like a warning, like, slow down or else we're going to really make you. And I didn't listen. And so the second time I actually listened, but I didn't have the tools that I needed. I didn't have my team that I'd surrounded myself with by the third time. And so the third time, although that was the biggest kick in the guts of all, it was like I had all of the tools that I needed. The right I was in the right place in the right time with all the right people around me. I didn't have all of those people that I had the second time around. I was still just coming off the bat of working a 9 to 5 with all the people of the same mindset. 2 years
Mm-hmm.
later, I am, 2 years into entrepreneurship, this new way of living without working 9 to 5, not trading time for money, with a whole heap of new people, new mindsets, and living in this higher vibration that when I did need to find something, it just came to me. Like when I went doctor shopping, like I had a couple of doctors and then all of a sudden found one in my backyard in Frio. And it was really funny because she had like a 3 month waiting list before you could even get in to see her. And I saw her the next day because I told her what I was trying to do. And she said, "Yep, we're going to make it happen." But when I hung up, they didn't get my phone number to let me know that I had an appointment the next day. So their receptionist drove to my house and
Oh,
gave me a handwritten letter saying your appointment is tomorrow.
oh
Like
my
that
God.
wouldn't have happened in the other times, right?
Mm.
It all
Yeah.
just came, like it just sort of fell in my lap as soon as I thought it. It just happened.
Mm. I love how much your journey is just tied into like an entrepreneurial alignment, like be in the moment, live with the timing. Oh my gosh. That's so
Mm.
magical.
Yeah, it feels magical.
Yeah. You really are living in the magic. Yeah, I can't even picture like the old version of you. And then, yeah, just like how you've emerged into this. It's so beautiful. And it's interesting there that you said 11 years of you like completely ignoring your emotions. And that specifically 11 was the number. I don't know why that stood out to me so much. But I'm like,
Mm.
11 has got something for you. That's for sure.
Yeah, I never pieced that together. I was 11 when I decided not to cry
Yeah,
again.
wow.
Yeah.
Then
And
11 years later, you did.
it wasn't 11 years later because that would have made 22. But yeah, definitely a lot of
About
things.
11 years was there. Yeah, that's so interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah, um, and I remember when we met and you had the 1111 hoodie on, I was on that part of my journey of just like starting to see the like spiritual numbers. Well, I guess I've seen them a long time, but starting to like that was started to guide like what I was actually doing in business. And then we were at the Empire event and you were wearing that hoodie and I was like, "Oh, that's a great number." Like and then you stood up and you told your story that you want to start, or you are starting, I think at that time already, the skincare brand, and this is what's happening. And um, yeah, building your empire. So good. So
Yeah.
that was really interesting. I love that so much. And I can't wait for you to write your book and hear.
Yes. Well, I am
Yeah.
already, as we speak, 36,000 words in. So
I
I
wouldn't have it any other way with your achieving skills here. Like,
you know what?
or
It's not about It's not about achieving with this one because I've attempted to write it several times across the
Yeah.
years, about this whole journey. But each time I've written it, it's been for the wrong intention. So it's been
Yeah.
because people have said, you need to write a book, you need to tell your story, you need to do this. And so I thought I had a duty to do that. And each time I just fell out of alignment with it and I felt like icky. And whenever I was writing, it just didn't feel right. So I'd push it aside and go later. And then I'd try it again later. And it wasn't until after this third one and I started moving into that flow. And then I wrote the chapter in Try and Stop Her. And it just came out of me. Like, how long ago was that we wrote the chapter? Like maybe 5 months ago, 6 months ago?
6 months, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, about 6 months ago. And that one chapter felt like it just came out of me so effortlessly. And I was like, this is not enough to showcase everything that I've been through. So from that moment, I started writing the full book. And yeah, 36,000 words in now. I see it finishing by the end of the year. So yeah, keep a
Mhm.
lookout. I'm hoping to secure a book deal next year. I want to go through the traditional publishing route rather than the self-publishing route. But I know how difficult that is because you usually have to be a celebrity or a very well-known author to get one of those. But I'm putting it out there.
I'm sure it will come for you.
Thank you.
I can see it in your white parasuit on the cover.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, hell yes.
So epic. I love that. Okay, so like I know how hard it was to try and fit my life into a chapter. I can only imagine what it was like to fit your life into a chapter. And like, did you feel like that was maybe a moment where you were able to like reflect back and like feel the feelings through the whole journey? Like the way you're telling it now just feels like you've put together all of it. You've gone through all of the distinct moments, perhaps where you weren't in your body and you just kind of lived through it and were on autopilot. How was
Mhm.
that for you to write that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly how it was. It was seeing the teaching moments at each part and that everything happened exactly as it should, because if it didn't, I wouldn't be where I am now. And this life that I live now is my absolute dream life. I was actually reading through some of my journals recently to write my book, and I had written a few different um like manifesting what my day would be before it happened. And at that time, like when I was reading it now, I didn't really understand why I would have written it 2 years ago, because that is my life now. And
Mm.
everything except for the smoothie bowls and all of these vegan stuff,
Yeah.
everything happens exactly as it is now. And I thought, why would I have written like a manifesting letter to myself of the day of the life in Shaughnessy and not change anything? And so I started flicking back to the pages beforehand and I was like, oh, well, I wasn't living that life at all. Like I was midway through a 40-day fast when I wrote that after working full time for the last decade. Like that's not my life at all. So
Yeah.
it was such a surreal feeling to read it like I had written it today.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, that's so insane. If people didn't think manifesting was a thing, now they must know. They must fucking know.
Oh, hells yes.
Oh, and just with the smoothie bowl thing and the carnivore diet, because I've done it too, and I found really great effects. But like I just loved how that was just such perfect timing, and it just was like, hold on, here is your answer. And I actually can't believe that came from your parents doing it, but that's such a good like story. Um, can you just tell us a bit more about it? Because I had a lot of women ask me questions, right? What's it like to do carnivore as a woman, let alone your story of let alone
Mhm.
what's it like to do it for what you're doing it for?
Yeah, well, mine is very experimental because it's not been done before, right? Like
Yeah.
especially not for cancer. But um, there was several reasons that made me decide to do it. But yeah, it's crazy that you say that, because if I had have just gone to surprise my parents and everything went the way it should have, I would have come home and still been a vegan. But
Yeah.
because of everything, like I had all these stops, like God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, basically changed every single plan that I tried to put in place. Like even not even allowing me to get to Geraldton. I thought, why does he not why would the universe make me want to break down halfway through? Like what have I achieved out of that? But my car needed to be fixed. And it didn't get fixed until the day that Blake got COVID. So
Mm-hmm.
if I still managed to get there and I came home before he had COVID, none of that would have happened. And I probably would have gotten COVID too and then been dealing with cancer and COVID, which is not ideal. But
Yeah.
okay, so in terms of the carnivore diet, for the first 6 months, I went strict carnivore diet. The first sort of like month was easy. It was hard because it was like the mind ethical dilemma of being a vegan to eating just meat, but I sort of had this headspace around thanking the animals for giving their life for mine. And once I moved through that, it was quite simple. And it turns out my body was craving this for so long. Like I would salivate to the smells of the meat cooking. But all of that changed when I started adding the off-label drugs. So I was taking all of these drugs that were for other things than what they were intended for, so off their purpose, which is why they're not covered by the PBS. And they mixed a lot of chemistry in my body, which made me feel at the beginning when I was taking a lot at the same time, it made me feel a bit nauseous. And because I'd only just started changing my diet, my mind linked the nausea to the meat rather than the medication. Kind of like when you link an alcohol to a big night out and you can't have that alcohol anymore. It's not the actual type of alcohol that you had, it's just because you had too much.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I had a lot of issues with that. And I really struggled to get food down because of it, because in my mind, the meat was making me feel sick. But as the drugs started to settle, because it was just a lot of chemistry moving through my body at the beginning, and after a few months of it, it all sort of settled and found their way and it was fine. But I wasn't feeling sick anymore, but I was left with this meat aversion, which was like the very thing that was helping me
Yeah.
treat everything. So I ended up going to a hypnotist and getting them to sort of change how I saw it. And it took a couple of sessions, but eventually I was able to start back on, I started back on chicken because that was the least offensive meat.
Yeah.
And then I would sort of add a little bit and a little bit and a little bit until I was back to it again. But eventually the whole carnivore diet just wasn't really suitable for me. It wasn't sustainable for me. And I moved it into more of a ketovore diet or a keto-based carnivore diet. So where I still don't have the veggies and the fruit and all that sort of stuff, but I'm having cheese and cream and eggs and like all of these things. And there was a select few food groups outside of meat that I allowed myself to have that was still going to keep me in ketosis, which was a very inhospitable place for a cancer to live,
Yeah.
but it didn't really impact the rest of my diet. So it might look like avocado or olives or sometimes cucumber, and then every now and then, occasionally, I'd have berries as a sweet. And so with that new style of eating, and I think I was the biggest thing was I was craving bread and craving pasta and rice. I missed bread, pasta, and rice. Because they're very carby. So I eventually found a low carb bread that was like 2 grams of carbs per slice and allowed myself 2 slices a day, and just having that little extra just took all that away, even though there was no extra carbs and it's going to keep me in ketosis and it wasn't really going to impact everything as a whole. It filled that space that made me miss all these other food groups and made it so much more sustainable. So I can have like eggs and avocado with feta on toast kind of thing, and it all of a sudden it becomes like a really easy diet. So now, so once I started implementing this like keto carnivore or ketovore, whatever you want to call it, and creating my own style of eating, everything felt easier. And I knew again that the scans would tell me whether or not this was on the right track, and everything was going as smoothly as it needed to. So I kept doing that. But then I felt
Although our podcast presenters and all guests strive to deliver accurate information, they cannot address your unique circumstances comprehensively. Therefore, the content shared by any speaker on this platform is not personalized advice for individuals and should not substitute professional medical or health guidance. It is crucial to consult a qualified medical professional or for personalized advice. Additionally, always seek guidance from a healthcare provider before making decisions regarding your health or that of your family. Furthermore, it's essential to recognize that what works for one person may not work for another, emphasizing individual responsibility for health decisions as promoted on our show.
But when I tried to
Thank you so much for listening to the episode, and we will see you on the next one.
I felt sick and nauseous, and it was so hard to do. So I was like, all right, let's try a different way of doing that. I still want to break the cycle, but let's do it just one day and maybe every month instead of 5 days every 6 months. And so I started doing that. And that's what I do now. It's like I've been doing that for well over a year. And once a month, I have a day where nothing's off limits. Like I will have a family size Kit Kat bar. And like I will have no regrets. I'll go through Macca's drive-through, which is so exciting because every time we go out on a night out and we go through the Macca's, I sort of sit there going, "Well, I really want those chips." So, but then instead of saying I can't, I just go, I'm choosing not to right now because I'll have them on my high carb day, is what I call them. So high carb day, nothing's off limits once a month. Every now and then I might have an extra one if I'm on holidays or if it's Christmas time or something like that. But otherwise, that's essentially how I have come to live on this diet sustainably. My lunch, I've recently bought a Ninja Creamy, which is the best investment I've ever had outside of the life coaches that I hired. And I literally put in like raw eggs, egg yolks, cream and protein powder and freeze them. And then I have ice cream for lunch every single day. And I love it.
That sounds amazing. Please give me that recipe.
Do you have a Ninja Creamy?
Yeah? No.
Yeah. Oh, you need to get one.
Tell me, what is it?
It's like a bullet, like a ninja
Yeah.
bullet. It makes ice cream and you literally you
Okay, I've
just
seen
mix
those.
up
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
you mix up whatever you want and put it in the freezer the night before, and then you just put it in your Ninja Creamy and it whips it up and it is smoother than ice cream. It is so good. And because I had smoothie bowls every single day while I was on a
Yeah.
vegan diet. I really missed that. So this is
Yeah.
replaced that and it's way better.
That's amazing. Okay, I'll need one of those. So like
Yeah.
I find that carnivore diet is much better for me as well. And like please I need that bread as well. um
Yeah.
it's just that texture that you end up missing. But I function so much better off it and like I have gut stuff and that was like really helping with that and now we're going into the mindset stuff of it's getting better. So yeah, so that's really incredible. I love that. And I thought about too. I actually started with thanking animals as well because I was really worried about it. And it
Yeah.
just feels like yeah, you want it to come from like a beautiful place where what you're doing.
Mm.
But it just feels like that's such a natural thing for humans to be eating. Like, you know, you always go out for the hunt and then you eat a lot of meat and then you fast. Like that's probably the standard. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's quite funny with all of the things that the vegan community try to say in terms of the way that humans have been anatomically put together and in
Hmm.
past, um, what's it called? Our ancestors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like all of those can be debunked and replaced with meat style people. It's just crazy. Like it was so hard to not only unlearn everything that I'd learned, but also learn new things. And yeah, like our brains did not, as a human, our brains didn't grow until we started eating fish. Like
Hmm.
otherwise they would still be the same size as the monkeys.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of leave it open to the theory of, you know, I feel like some people function better on vegetables and fruit. Maybe they were like descendant from a gatherer. I'll leave it to that. Like if you function better off that, sure. But like that's kind of where I'm like that's how that feels to me. But
Yeah.
yeah, with meat and like cooking was what helped like cooking the meat, I think was what turned out to also like advance our brains and things like that because it like unlocks other different
Yes.
nutrients and vitamins or the
Yeah.
potency of it, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah.
such a
It's
fascinating
also
topic.
like I think where where you talk about how thanking the meat changes the vibration and the energy of it. Like with there's studies again. Like I'm really a fanatic around research and study, and I think that come from my science background.
Yeah,
As an occupational therapist, it's a Bachelor of Science. I learned how to research properly, and sometimes I wonder why did I do all of that to not do any of that now? But I think there's so many parts of that I take from it, and one of them is the research side. But also, I was a coach for 10 years as an occupational therapist, but I was just training educators and teachers and
mm,
therapists. So now I get to just coach other humans to go through what I've been through, but on a completely different scale. Anyway, this study was studying, I think it was rats. It's always rats or mice, something like that, and they were giving um, the mice the same food, and they were high cholesterol, high fat. They were diets in um, that were supposed to make the mice fat. But one of the group of mice, they just sort of gave it to them in the cage, and the other one, the feeder would take each of the rats individually and stroke it and give it love and do all of these things, and then like give the food to the rat, and the cage rats instantly put on weight, and the other ones stayed exactly the same weight regardless of what they put in their mouth. So it's really about the state of the being, the state of the food. Like it was crazy hearing that.
that is crazy. Yeah. There are people like they say like you can change the state of water as well and it freezes differently when you talk to it. Like it's
Huh.
it's all vibrations and we're all made of the same stuff.
Now we're really getting woo woo.
Yes. You're only woo woo if you are woo woo already, is what we
Yeah,
discussed
yeah.
before.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
You don't say the word woo woo unless you're already there.
very true. We still need to know what people call us outside of this, but it's too far. We've gone too far. We don't know anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're the Frio people. Um,
yeah.
yeah. But okay, so we're in the woo then. So where is this whole tying into being in human design then? Because actually you literally just said you're a researcher and I'm like, you're a 1-4, obviously a researcher.
Yes. Yes, I'm a 1-4. I need to know all of the things. Even when we were doing the Try and Stop Her book, and Em asked me initially, you know, would you like to be a part of this? You have a brilliant story, an incredible story that I'd love to have in this book. And I had to ask that many questions before I was ready to say yes. Because I needed to know everything. Like it was basically researching what it was that I was going to say yes to, and most of the time I was asking these questions via voice drop, and it was usually in between a yoga class or going to coffee or something like that. So I was walking across the road, talking really quietly, but really like just to the straight to the point. Like this is what I think. Blah blah blah. I've got to get this over and done with before I open the door to order my coffee. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then she ended up sending me a message saying, "I'm not sure if we're aligned in this. They're just it's not really the questions themselves. It's the way that they're being asked, and like if this was a full body yes, then you probably would have said that already." And I'm like, no, I think you've missed that completely. I'm a 1-4, and this is my thing. And she's like, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Oh, I love that. I literally have goosebumps. That was so cool. Yeah. That makes sense. It makes me happy that she knew what you were saying.
Yeah, I'm a 1. I'm a 1. And the 4, that's means I'm gonna be a part of this community. So yes.
Like it's
Um,
happening. I'm
yes.
glad I have a 3. I'm glad I have the experimenter because like I didn't ask any questions. I was like, yes. I have no idea what I just signed up to. Normally that's not me though. I like afterwards I looked at it, I read the whole thing and I was like, yes, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, everything that I have done has been heavily researched before I did it. And even in the way that like when I did my 40-day fast, like I didn't really do any research at that time, but I sat with my body and that was my own research. You know,
Yeah.
I spoke to so many different life coaches and counselors and energy healers, and that was my research. So
Mm-hmm.
it was still there. But yeah, in terms of a projector, my whole like projectors have very little energy And that energy that they do have is super powerful and super potent. And they're here to teach and coach and mentor. And so when I learned that I was a projector, first I was very, very disappointed because I thought I was a generator, and I thought
When was it?
a couple of years ago now.
Okay.
I think it might have been about maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago, but I learnt that I was this projector, and I tried I tried so many different ways of, like, I was like, maybe I've got my birthday wrong, like the time. So I put in like 5 minutes before, and then I was like, maybe it's PM, not AM. So I tried that, like everything to try and get the generator, which I thought I was, or I thought I was a manifesting generator. But eventually I learnt that I was a projector, and I sort of sat with it and did my research. What is a projector? And the more and more I learned about it, I was like, okay, yeah, this is me. This is me. And I have been living as a generator um in my first sort of 30 years of my life. And it wasn't until I started sitting with me and sitting in that flow and letting things come, and then just doing those really potent parts of my life to help others, and the rest was, for me, was where everything started happening. So now I am the classic projector who has burnt out before I was 40. My burnout was cancer several times, and I am now in a coaching position, helping other people and teaching. So I am as stereotypical as projectors can be.
Yeah. You're really in the flow though, and like really the alignment that's being chased, right? And I think that reaction you had to being a projector is very like everyone's experience. Maybe mine wasn't that hard because I was very like flowy, kind of still because of the experimenting. I think that it made me like bounce in different areas, and I was like, you're not going to tell me what to do, I'm going to change direction. So that gave me a lot of space in between, I think. um but yeah, I can see obviously like you had that generator thing, and without putting us in a box though, I think it's such a great tool just for that experimenting and like just for untangling of what like you were going through as well. Like you're like, why can't I do things like that way? Why did that bring me to cancer? And then you kind of get this beautiful explanation from human design of like, there you go, like try this out. And then when you try it out, you feel the difference. And then like,
Yeah.
how can you deny that thing, that like explanation that's clearly come from something cosmic, I feel like as well. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's definitely helped with my relationship with my husband as well, because he's a generator, and
mine
he,
too.
yeah, he
So
just
weird.
he's learnt now. He's like, oh, so that's why I have this like go, go, go energy and can just keep on going. And then all you want to do is read in the backyard in the sunshine. I'm like, yes, that's
That is
why.
it. Yeah, I had that same reaction. He's a generator. And then like he says things like he has a really hard yes and a really hard no, which is great. And that's always kind of bothered me in a way because I'm like, had okay, you just made me like hit a wall. And I'm like, I'm kind of over here like, la la la, everything's okay. And you have this hard wall. And it was really hard to like understand that. But then when I learned that about him too, I was like, oh, there we go. I
Mm,
am okay with you kind of like having this hard wall up.
yeah.
um but it's so great because they give us energy and they just like
Yes.
are so solid.
That's why my husband, he knows that I have limited energy resource and that I require energy from him to be able to do it. So now he like forcibly gives me energy. He goes,
Yeah.
I know you need my energy, so let's go, let's do up, come on, let's do it. We've got to do this. I'm like,
uh,
oh, okay.
yeah.
But it's funny that like even like we talk about living in alignment with our design and stuff like that. And for a projector, it's around sort of being invited rather than telling. And I have sort of rearranged that being invited to asking for permission before I speak what I want to tell, because I have so much value to give, and I have so much to teach. I can help so much, but if I don't ask for permission, or if people don't invite me first, it doesn't land. And I learned that when I was coaching as an occupational therapist, and I was a supervisor and a manager, and people like I would have my one-on-ones with my therapist, and I would sort of tell them all the things that they need to learn, and it's such good value and they need to know this, and they'd be
Mhm.
like, okay, like it just didn't have that same like power that it should have. And then and the same when would incidentally coach people without it being called a coaching session. I try and help them for whatever reason, and they just were like, well, who asked you? Like
Mhm.
I don't need, or like you don't need to tell me all of that. And I have a projector friend who I'm trying to kindly tell her that she's doing the same thing to me constantly. She's trying to tell
Yeah.
me. I'm like, I know it's helpful, but I didn't ask you. Like,
Yeah. It's not
but
landing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So now in the even in my coaching sessions that I do currently, I will never start telling them something. I will just say, would you like to hear this? This is what my thoughts are. Would you like me to explain it? And it just sets that space for them to go, okay, I'm ready to hear it. I'm ready for it to land. Yes, I want it. Give it to me.
That's beautiful. That's a really good thing to know. But yeah, I've experienced that as well. And then someone next to you, like a generator, will say the same thing you said, and then it lands for people, and you're like, "This is the most frustrating thing I've ever experienced."
Yes, I said that.
Yeah,
Why didn't you
nobody
listen
heard.
to me?
Yeah, yeah. It's a hard lesson to learn, but like it's so good after you do learn it. Do you maybe know how you figured it out for like marketing as well for the skincare brand? So like how I feel like that needs to be approached in a different way as well. Was there anything that like comes to attention for you there where how do you
Mm,
approach it when you have to wait for an invitation essentially?
yes, absolutely, absolutely. I found because I was doing so many different courses on marketing and how to do this and how to run a business and stuff like that, it was quite masculine and quite like, go out and send 200 DMs a day and do all this and all that sort of stuff. And it was kind of like, it felt really forced and really like just trying to grab people and pull them in and say buy my stuff and look at it and you're gonna love it and all this sort of stuff. And it was the projector side of me taught me to just put it out there and allow those to come to me. So I stopped trying to force anything and just went, you know what, if it's there, the right people will see it and they will come to me. And then when they ask, I can give them that information.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I've noticed that too, and a lot of like nurture the people around you because they've already invited you, and that has a big ripple effect, I think too. So that's just putting it out there, and then those people are like, "Hello," and then it just
Yeah.
spreads. Ah, so good. I've
Yeah.
noticed that with your ads actually.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, even my website is now set up in a way that it's kind of like this place where you land, and if you want the information, you can find it easily. So that's
Mm,
kind of them asking rather than me going bam, bam, bam. This is what you need.
mm-hmm.
That kind of thing. So it's
Yeah.
just ripples all the way through. And yeah, the same with the ads and the email marketing and all of the things. It's just sort of like I'm just going to put myself here, and if you need me, come. You know,
Yeah.
I'm here. Ask if you need. And the ask if you need in terms of the email marketing is like click on the button and it will take
Mm-hmm.
you to what you need. Or in the website, it's, do the menu and find the thing that you want. And then you're asking the website to give you that information. So it's still
Yeah.
very in alignment with being a projector.
Oh, I love that. I love that you brought it up to the website. I'm like, that's what I've been helping people do. I recently did another projectors and like she didn't know she was one. And I was like, I reckon you are one. Um, and then we're like, oh, like we have to do it a whole different way for you, and it's gonna be amazing. Yeah.
I love that.
I'm really glad to hear that you kind of feel the same about other marketing situations, right? Like I have a lot of projectors friends where I've told them to mute manifesting generators because they're feeling burnt out from their
Good
energy
idea.
just on social media. And yeah, like it's freaking insanely powerful. And you're just like, I can't, it's wearing me out. So yeah, and if you try and copy that, you just end up burnt out in like not even a day. I feel like, yeah. So I'm glad to hear that like you've noticed that too, and just those tactics just don't work like for us.
Mhm.
Have you tried any? Like, do you feel like there was any that were like specifically?
Yeah, so when I was doing, it was my very first course, before I knew that there was hundreds and thousands of courses out there. It was kind of like, I need help. And then the first one that came up, I was like, this is exactly what I need because
Yeah.
they did it that way.
Yeah.
They were very masculine, most likely manifests, mani gens or generators. And they we're very much on the path of like sending 200 DMs a day. And if you're not sending them, then you're not, gonna make money. And I was like, I just want to take my little stall to like a market. And they're like, but do you want to rely on markets to get your income for the rest of your life and all this sort of stuff? And I was like, but I really like going to markets because I connect with people. Like, and you can
Yeah.
people via DM, send 200 a day. Here's a spreadsheet, put it all in, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, it feels so icky. Like, I don't think I ever sent more than like 3 DMs out of my 200. And even that felt so yuck. And I was like, nah, I'm just going to ignore this part and I'll try and do some of the other parts. And
Yeah.
it was so funny during that time too, because I started doing meta ads and I had a coach in that program who was working specifically with me on my meta ads. And it felt so icky and I just could not get there and couldn't get the traction. And I ended up spending about $3,000 and having maybe $100 return in ads,
Mm-hmm. Wow.
$100 return in revenue.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like if I spend 3,000, I'll probably get 15,000 return. So it's a very, very different way of looking at it.
There's the metrics. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. And it's such a weird place to be because, they're telling you the answer is essentially you feel like, and then you do it and it's completely like, this feels ick. And then you kind of just feel like you like, what's wrong with you? It's like a really shit place to be because like, what's wrong with me? Especially when or like when I've been in a group program, for example, and then the managers are like, yeah, it's working amazing. And you're like, why is this not working
Yeah.
for me? Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe there should be some courses out there that literally break down this is what you should do for each of the different
I'm
design.
putting that together. Just so I
Ah,
put together a PDF.
there's a gap in the market. You found it.
So good. Yeah. P.S. There's a freebie already, guys, in the show notes.
There we go. Tap
But
in.
yeah, it's gonna tap into it, right? It's potent. It is so potent. I've even spoken, so generators are all in my world, and even generators feel like that doesn't work for them, and they also feel really like, yeah, because it's like, they need to listen to their gut, and then they also need to, they kind of do still need to be, it's not waiting for the invitation, it's something similar there, or waiting to respond, there it is. So it's similar. In a different sense, they have to go in a different, so anyway, if you're interested, download it. But I'm like, it's just tied into everything too, without it being like, this is how you must do it. That's what I love about it. But yeah,
Mhm.
it's great to hear your journey. um Okay, well, I want to keep talking, but I feel like we should leave everyone with perhaps the last piece of final advice you want to leave everyone with today. Love to hear
Yeah, you should probably make this into episodes part 1 and 2 by the sounds of
it.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, best advice. My gosh, there are so many things. There are so many
No
things.
kidding. How thick
Oh,
is your book gonna be? I'm like
oh,
picturing it.
I wanted to be 50,000 words, but I'm 36,000 in, and I've broken it up into part 1, 2, and 3, which is kind of
Okay.
like, each it's
Yeah.
yeah, kind of like each diagnosis and what I've learned in each path. Part 1 is the longest because that's where, oh, hold up. No, it doesn't do part 1. It's part 1 starts in diagnosis 2 because that's where I stopped and listened.
Yeah.
So then part 2 is this whole new journey and how things have evolved. And then part 3 is, oh fuck, it's happened again. What do I do
Mm-hmm.
now? So yeah, that's not going to be very long. I'm hoping that it's going to be, an average 50,000, which is your typical one, because I don't want to scare people off by a big, huge book. But
Mm-hmm. Cool.
okay. What is, oh my gosh, I have so many. nuggets of wisdom. What
Yeah.
is that I can leave people with?
Just whatever feels good today.
I will leave with a story of when I was midway through my 40-day fast, and I think it was day 18, and I was feeling very low, very lethargic, didn't have any energy. I was actually feeling very sorry for myself. Why me? You know, I'm young, I'm healthy, and all of these things, and here I am with stage 4 breast cancer. And my mum called me and she told me about these two girls that were driving from Perth to Geraldton, the same road that I drive all the time to get back to my family. And they had an accident and they died. And it was that moment that really, really clicked for me, that I realized those girls died. They didn't have cancer, but they still died. They will never take another breath. And here I am living, breathing, alive right now. So now, this right now moment is the moment to live.
And wrapping up the podcast there. Jeez. The reminder of death. I absolutely love it. And I know that hits hard for everyone. I like to think about it a lot too. So I'm glad you left with that one. There's only, we only have a few thousand, 10,000, like, what is it? Five digits worth of days left. It's like not very much, maybe 6. Mm, amazing. Okay. You've got it.
All right. All right. Let's leave it there.
Gotta let it land, though. Gotta let it land. All right. Well, where can people find you and your amazingness online?
Yeah. Find me on my Instagram, which is Shaunace_West. It's SHAUNACEE_West. And that will have the links to all of my website, my brands, 1111 Lab, all of the things. So if you did want to follow 1111 Lab, it is 1111_lab. Or 1111 Lab spelt out in the full words, ELEVEN ×2 lab.com.au. But yeah, otherwise, Insta is where it's at, and my DMs are always open.
Awesome. Everyone needs to start a chat with you and invite you to talk to them.
Yeah, I think this has been a very powerful session.
It has been, yeah. It feels really good. I feel really in my body, and I think we nailed it because we set out to do this one without any masks on, and that was awesome. So thanks for being here. And just thanks for sharing your story, obviously. And that is how you connect to people in your human design. But, you're doing a really amazing job at letting it just touch so many people. So thanks.
Thank you so much for having me. I've loved being here and can't wait to hear how it all goes. But yes, I'd love to see your little what did we call it? Your PDF that you're going to create.
Yeah.
I think a PDF is not going to be enough. You're going to have to do an actual course to go like choose your own adventure, and you choose what human design you are. This is what you got to do.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, yeah, you've really highlighted that that's where it's going. And yeah, like this wasn't meant to be. I was like, this isn't going to be what I do. And then I'm like, look how powerful it is. Look how powerful it is.
So powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you
Okay.
so much for having me here. I've loved speaking with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was awesome. Thank you so much for listening. I do hope you enjoyed that. We are exploring our comfort zones and our edges with every episode, every guest, and every episode I do by myself. If you have enjoyed this, please follow us on Spotify, leave a 5-star review or a review on Apple Podcasts. It would mean the world to us. We get to grow and have more informative guests on, more provocative guests if that's what you want. I am so down to see where this grows. In the meantime, follow me on Instagram at amanda.petra__, and I would love to chat with you in the DMs. What hit home, what didn't, what came to mind. It would be really cool. So I will see you there. And thank you so much. See you in the next episode. Although our podcast presenters and all guests strive to deliver accurate information, they cannot address your unique circumstances comprehensively. Therefore, the content shared by any speaker on this platform is not personalized advice for individuals and should not substitute professional medical or health guidance. It is crucial to consult a qualified medical professional or for personalized advice. Additionally, always seek guidance from a healthcare provider before making decisions regarding your health or that of your family. Furthermore, it's essential to recognize that what works for one person may not work for another, emphasizing individual responsibility for health decisions as promoted on our show. Thank you so much for listening to the episode.